Through this letter, I want to express my deep pain as the mother of Michael Byers Jr. I cannot accept the freedom of the individual who ran over my son, causing him a tragic and irreversible death. He is unaware of the unimaginable damage he has inflicted, especially on me. To this day, my heart remains shattered by the loss of my son, and every memory of what John Rees told me about the accident haunts me. The day following the accident, early in the morning, I went to the accident site and saw John Rees there, posing as a witness. Not knowing who he was, I thanked him for the information, completely unaware I was speaking to the man that had destroyed my life. He recounted everything as if nothing happened.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of a man who struck and killed 19-year-old riding a bicycle, and he did this while he was out on bond. He then left the scene and really pretended he wasn't involved, and it was an eyewitness that took a picture of the plate that ended up getting him arrested. Now, we will unpack it with the details at the end. I also want to announce that Connecticut has brought on a new full-time board member, and we are going to hear from him today. And he comes from law enforcement, having over 20 years in the department as a lieutenant with a very impressive career. We'll unpack that at the end as well. With that, let's jump in.
State your name and inmate number for the record.
First name John, last name Rees, inmate number 348-595.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for John Rees, inmate number 348-595. He is serving a sentence of 12 years, execution suspended after 5 years, 4 years probation for evading responsibility and violation of probation or new line offense of attempted assault fact. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of November 22nd, 2023. There is victim input in this case. The inmate was heard by the board on September 8, 2023. He was denied parole. The new hearing date was set for September 2024. The board recommended that the inmate be choices, good intentions, bad choices, and any additional positive programming, and to remain ER-free. Since his last hearing, the offender has completed the following programs. He has maintained his employment in the kitchen, has completed Tier 2, voices, and C-card. He is currently participating in Smart Recovery and is mentoring in the Tier 2 program. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score for risk of recidivism falls within the moderate range. This is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin, Mr. Rees.
In 2020, I was involved in an accident which cost a young man named Michael his life. So I do empathize with the victim parents. I do understand the hurt and pain that I did cause them over the past few years. I want to apologize for my actions. I did play a part in this accident. No parent should have to bury their child. I wish there was another outcome when this young man was here with us today. He didn't deserve this. When I realized I struck Michael, I panicked. I was stressed, depressed, hurt, confused. I misunderstood what the investigating officer said to me, and I left the scene. I denied the fact that I had any involvement in this accident because I was too busy pointing the finger at the first driver and not managing what I have done, or was I actively listening because I couldn't believe I heard an innocent human being. For the past few years, I've been working on myself physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. I picked up the Bible, started reading on a daily basis, which helped me start reading self-help books and listening to motivational podcasts. I learned the 333 rule, which helped me to think 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 weeks from now before reacting to any negative situation. Also learned to examine my behavior towards drug and alcohol use. I learned to express my feelings and emotions and not keep them bottled up inside. I avoid arguing, pointing the finger, and blaming others, and I take responsibility for my actions. I also make sure I get clarification before leaving any crime scene. I encourage one another. I'm being supportive. I let love in. I communicate with respect now. And I didn't take these programs just for certification, but for transformation, for the victim and the victim family. I am a mentor, as y'all know already. And what I learned from Voice is how I hurt and harmed the victim family, and my community as well as my family. I do apologize for my actions. I did play a part in this accident. I wish there was another outcome where this young man was here with us today, because he sincerely did not deserve this. And I thank the board of pardon for giving me a second opportunity today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rees, for your opening statement. I appreciate your expressing remorse for the victims and accepting responsibility for your actions. I also appreciate your doing what we asked you to last time. I was on your original panel, and you did follow through with our recommendations. So I commend you on your efforts thus far. You've been before the board before. You're welcome. And so what's going to happen today is, again, we'll all take turns asking you questions, but today we have victim input on your case. So we'll turn the hearing over to the victim's advocate when we are done, and then we will deliberate and give you our decision, okay?
Okay.
I just want to state for the record that the state's attorney, they objected the last time to you being released early, and they are objecting again.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Understandable.
Best of luck to you, sir. Mr.
Yes.
Rodriguez, we'll start with the
Thank you, Madam
questions.
Chair. Mr. Rees, thank you so much for your opening statement. You didn't have it prepared in writing, but you did a nice job speaking, and it felt really from the heart for me. And I appreciate you accepting responsibility for this. It was a tragic accident that happened, that took a life, and that family's going to continue to suffer probably forever with this loss. Yeah. I noticed in reading your documentation that the previous panel had originally denied your application, struggled with bringing you back. But when they decided to, they wanted you to take some additional programming. Can you talk to us a little bit about the program that you've taken and how that has prepared you for transition back out into the community?
Oh, I don't have any involvement with the old people, places, and things. So I'm willing to to make new memories and start just get my life back on track. I want to do, and I'm doing this for the family because you know what they're going through is forever. So I suffer every day because I know what they're going through is forever. So it's like I'm doing this for them. And what I've learned is change and be humble.
That's what I want you to talk about. I want you to talk about what that change is, what that change looks like.
Change?
What that change looks like.
Well, for one, it's not dealing with old people, places, and things, and being humble, patient, walking away from any negative activity, and I enjoy helping people. So that's what change has been for me, helping others, reading positive books. So
you talked about doing some mentorship. Talk to me about what who you've been mentoring and how those things are going. What's been your kind of message to those that you've been mentoring?
Oh, I always tell the brothers, people to stay positive, pray, read, work out, journal. And it has been working for a lot of enemies. And journaling is like the biggest thing we've been doing. So, and I try to tell them to don't be too hard on yourself. Let love in, self-love and things like that.
Okay. Talk a little bit about your release plan. What you're thinking about, what's going to be your goals when you finally do get released?
Well, when I'm released, I already have a job waiting for me at the moving company, and I will be trying to go back to Northeast Building Supply to be a yardsman. I was a yard foreman before I was incarcerated, but I know I can be a yardsman, so they're willing to rehire me. And I want to go back to school to be an electrician, to become so I can start my own business. And that was my goal before, and I'm sticking to the same goals. So that's my plans when I'm let back into society.
Yeah, I saw. We did receive the letters. I did see the letters in your files from the Northeast Company. That was very positive. You had a couple of other very positive, supportive reference letters that you got about who you are, and integrity and stuff. And but I don't know. I'd like you to just kind of, what about your substance abuse? What are you going to be doing about a relapse plan as part of your relapse, as part of your release?
Oh, when I release, so using or having any urges that's the least of my worries. And if I do have any urges or anything, I'll call my mentor from CCAR. My mentor, Sean Moore, and I'll call my recovery coach from CCAR and ask for help. But using as of right now, that's the last thing on my list. That's not even on my list, actually.
Well, I want to suggest you keep it on your list, because you don't know what can happen on the outside. Things are still very stressful on the outside for a lot of folks, and coming out may not be as easy. You've got probation to have to deal with when you come out, so you're still going to have some supervision going on when you do finally come out. I would suggest that you don't minimize the significance and importance of the work that you got to continue to do, even on the outside, because in recovery, the relapse is always right around the corner.
That is true.
Depending on what what curves life puts you on. So I'd like you to kind of keep that in mind. It looks as if you've done the programming that folks have asked you to do, and I don't really have a whole lot more questions for you this morning. I appreciate you answering my questions.
Thank you.
Again, I think this was a tragic accident. I appreciate you again taking responsibility for what happened.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. So, Mr. Rees, again, I was on your original panel, and you heard us, myself and my other two colleagues, at your last hearing, discussing whether or not we wanted to bring you back. You remember that? Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And part of the reason was because we believe that the sentence that was handed down to you was in line with it was very lenient, honestly, given the tragedy that was caused. And I think part of the reason we wanted to rehear you was because you sound so motivated and you really were working diligently on changing yourself. And so I'm happy to hear, and I'm happy to see that you remained on that positive path. And I understand that being denied is not an easy thing, because I know everyone in there wants to go home. But our jobs are to return those people that have shown a significant amount of change, as well as that they're suitable to go out into the community. So, and honestly, I really do think that you have changed. In listening to you in your opening statement, I was concerned that you keep saying that you're doing the programs for the victim. That might be offensive to them. And I know that you mean well with that statement, but the programming is not for them. The programs are for you. You should not want to commit another crime or create more victims, especially after the pain and the harm that you've caused this family. So going out and doing better should be for yourself primarily, and then to show the victims that you can be successful out in the community, if that is what you mean.
That's what sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I know that that's what you meant, but that's not how it came out,
Gotcha.
And, the victims are never going to be okay with this, ever, ever. If someone did this to your loved one, how would you feel?
I feel the same way as they are, as the victim families feel.
In 5 years for a life, Mr. Rees it really was a gift. So you've received some considerable consideration. I know those are the same words, but you really have. And I'm so happy, though, that you are on the straight and narrow, and that you are making better decisions, and that you are accepting accountability for your actions, all the things that we would want to hear. I'm happy to hear that you're doing those. So I don't want to negate the work that you've done, but I just want you to understand that the last time that we had this hearing, there was no victim input. And I can't imagine today that they're going to say, we'll go on, let them go out. But we take that statement into consideration as well. But please don't let this discourage you. Whatever the outcome of today is, don't be discouraged, and continue moving forward. And I guess I didn't have any questions for you, but I just wanted to say those few things to you. Mr. Kasauskas.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Rees.
Morning.
My colleagues have asked most of the questions. I've read through your file, so I just have a couple things. I noticed reading your file, you have a record of community release failures in the past. In fact, that
Yes.
you were I think you were on probation when this happened, right?
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell us what will be different this time and what your plan is to complete parole or your probation successfully so that we're not back in this situation again? What's different now from those previous community releases?
Well, my last when I violated the last probation, I was almost done. I had like 2 or 3 months, I believe, where the case went back in front of the judge. And I was happy for myself before this case happened. And, and what I've done last time was work. I was working every day, and I will continue to work every day. And if and my plan is to go to school, I understand it's hard in today's society, but I will continue to fight and do everything I've learned here. I will take it into society and use it and use the tools out there. But I'll do whatever I have to do to stay up. But trust me, this is it. I'm tired of this place. I don't like this place, but I do everything I have to do to stay positive and continue to meditate and pray. But I'm done. This is it. I'm telling you.
Okay, the only other thing I had, Mr. Rees, was as you're preparing to get ready to either be on probation or parole, have you looked into what's going on with your driver's license? What's the status of your driver's license right now?
I just paid for suspension, and they took it out of suspension, and I just got it reinstated last week. So it's active right now.
All right, Madam Chair, those are all the questions I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, Mr. Rees, we're going to turn the hearing over to our victim's advocate, Mrs. Williams, and we ask that you please not speak. You may listen, but please don't interrupt. Okay, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Williams.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, panel. I do see that the sister of the victim has joined us, and she will be addressing the board today, reading a statement from herself as well as the mother of the victim. If you can hear me, you may unmute at this time and begin with your statement. And when you are done, please mute again.
Okay. I will be reading a letter for myself and for my mother. To the honorable members of the parole board. My name is Fabiana, and I am Michael's sister. On Friday, November 6, 2020, our family lives were forever changed when we lost Michael due to the reckless and preventable actions of John Rees. His tragedy was not just an accident, it was a profound event that devastated our family, leaving us to navigate a future altered in ways we never expected. The impact of that day continues to resonate deeply within our lives and hearts. No words can truly capture the pain and suffering we have endured since the day. Michael was a vibrant soul, full of life and promise at 19 years of age, with dreams that will never be realized. The void left by his absence is immeasurable, making it feel at times unbearable to move forward. My family and I struggle daily with grief, anger, and overwhelming sense of loss. Every milestone, birthday, holiday, family gathering is now overshadowed by the absence. by his absence. My mother continues to struggle with clinical depression and grief, a journey that remains ongoing, and has led her to seek support through medication. I find myself worrying about her daily and fearing for her well-being should John Rees be released early. Meanwhile, Michael's father often avoids discussing the tragedy, and I often fear he will never find closure. In the wake of this loss, I have taken on a significant role and responsibilities to support my family, which has weighed heavily on me and affected my personal and professional life. I would like to emphasize that John Rees went missing after the accident and chose to evade cooperation with the police, which resulted in a lengthy 2-year criminal process marked with uncertainty and anguish for my family. John Rees was arrested on August 13, 2021, approximately 9 months after the accident, and was sentenced on November 30th, 2022. The emotional toll had been staggering, leading me to incur significant costs related to professional therapy and medical procedures brought on by grief, depression, and stress. Every time we pass the accident site, we are overwhelmed with tears, painful reminders that it is impossible to avoid in our daily lives since it's within a mile of my parents' home. The situation further was exaggerated when the driver approached my mother the day after the accident, an act that was not only disgraceful, but also deeply re-traumatizing for my dear mother. I want to make it very clear that John's actions have had a lasting and permanent impact on our lives. His choices that day and the aftermath stripped our family of peace, security, and a sense of safety. The emotional and financial hardship we face are profound. No sentence can ever restore what we have lost with Michael's death. In seeking justice for the reckless act, we firmly believe he must serve the entire 5-year sentence. Today, I respectfully request that the parole board deny any request for parole. The loss of my brother is something that can never be undone, and the person responsible for this tragedy must be held accountable to the full extent of the law. Granting parole would undermine the severity of the crime and the profound impact it has had on my family and the community. If the board chooses to grant release, I request stringent conditions to be imposed, including a mandatory mental health evaluation and treatment. It is critical that John Rees undergo a comprehensive mental health evaluation followed with any recommendations for treatment. Protective order. My family and I request a protective order to be placed against John Rees to ensure that we are not contacted or threatened in any way, nor in the future. The trauma and fear caused by the accident has left lasting scars, and we deserve the peace of mind that comes from knowing we will not be further contacted. Suspended driver's license. We request his license be suspended, and upon suspension expiration, he undergo driving courses prior to maintaining a valid driver's license in Connecticut and outside Connecticut. For clarity, John Rees has had numerous charges in the past related to motor vehicles, including but not limited to DUI, and we believe he has not learned how to be a safe driver. Probation. We highly recommend stringent conditions upon probation, although I frankly do not believe he will adhere to these given his history. He's a repeat offender, and the multiple violations of probation offense charges in his lengthy criminal history. Restitution. We also request that their restitution be made to our family for the financial burdens we face due to the tragedy, including funeral expenses and any other costs with my brother's untimely death. In conclusion, I ask the parole to remember the life of my brother, Michael Bias Jr., a life cruelly and unjustly taken from us. I ask you to please consider the profound loss and the ongoing suffering our family has endured when making your decision. Thank you for your time and understanding in this sensitive matter. That was a letter by myself, and I have a letter for my mother. I don't know if I should read now or pause.
Yep.
Okay.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Translated to English. To whom it may concern. Through this letter, I want to express my deep pain as the mother of Michael Bias Jr. I cannot accept the freedom of the individual who ran over my son, causing him a tragic and irreversible death. He is unaware of the unimaginable damage he has inflicted, especially on me. To this day, my heart remains shattered by the loss of my son, and every memory of what John Rees told me about the accident haunts me. The day following the accident, early in the morning, I went to the accident site and saw John Rees there, posing as a witness. Not knowing who he was, I thanked him for the information, completely unaware I was speaking to the man that had destroyed my life. He recounted everything as if nothing happened. And as I relive and am reminded of that moment, I feel coercive rage, especially when having thanked him. I feel as if he mocked me, my pain, and the wound that will never heal. When I returned home and saw him on television, my world crumbled. I felt so awful that I was on the brink of losing my mind. It's a nightmare to know that someone like him walks freely among us. All of this caused me immense pain. It is not fair that he has freedom, even though I know nothing can bring back my son. Not even if he were to spend his entire life in prison, could that alleviate my suffering. All I ask is that he serve the full sentence, which does not even begin to reflect the crime he committed. I also suggest that he undergo a psychological evaluation because he is not a normal person, nor fit to be in our society. I hope the laws are just and that the pain we endured is recognized. The situation is a burden too heavy to bear. Sincerely, Dora Bice.
Thank you very much for that statement, for those statements.
Of course.
Thank you so much, panel.
Are those the only statements, Mrs. Williams?
Yes, that's it.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Rees, we're going to deliberate and then we'll give you our decision, okay? Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this is a tragic accident. Life was taken. You heard from the victim statements, the impact that it's had on this family. They're very passionate about the impact. One can see the difficulty in dealing with the loss of a loved one. Based on what we've heard today. And this case is challenging because, in fact, he was here before, was asked to do something. And in fact, he followed through the recommendations of the panel at that particular point in time. So I'm very challenged at this moment, kind of conflicted in making a decision in this. I'd like to hear from you, Madam Chair, who was really part of the previous panel. For me, it seems as if Mr. Rees has really worked toward making some changes. I outlined a few of the things that he talked about. He completed his programming that he was asked to do, and in fact, served as a mentor for individuals and talked about his mentorship and what he shared with them. He accepted full responsibility early on and talked about his remorse in this and the loss. And in fact, you asked him about if he lost his daughter, how he would feel now, how he reacted, and he shared that information. He has the promise of employment upon leaving, which we don't always see when we're even talking about releasing someone out of the community. So you know, I want to be able to hear what you think about this in terms of your thing about me. Before I make my final decision on this, but for me, he's been doing the work that he was asked to do. He has not received any DRs in that year that he's been there. He previously say he had, but he has not. Yes, for me, he appears to be working what he was supposed to do.
I agree with you, Mr. Rodriguez. You know, and when the panel does hear these people and they decide to rehear them, it's almost as if really yeah. I don't. Can you just ask the officer? Can you just open that door and just ask them? Just yeah. No, it's in the facility. It's the officers behind it. Yeah, they're there. I apologize. Hi, we can hear your conversation in the back, and it's kind of distracting. So can you just?
My apologies. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So as I was saying, when we deny these offenders and we have them returned to us, it's almost as if we feel obligated that, you know, to release them, especially if they complied with our requests. And I think that oftentimes the offenders really feel like, okay, if they denied me and if I come back, they're going to let me out. But that's not always the case. That's not what it is. There are no guarantees. And, you know, I really do appreciate that he's been compliant in the facility since his last hearing, and he has been able to participate in the program, but that stuff is not for us. That stuff is for him. And I said that to him. And to hear the victims speak about what they lost, and I think that we recognize that at the first hearing, because we grappled with having him come back, but he sounds so motivated and he really did do a great job. with his opening statement, with answering our questions, and with his program participation. So this is not new to me as a member that was on his original panel. So I think that Mr. Rees has done a great job, and I think that he will continue to do a great job. But as the victims said in their statements, this sentence, will never bring back their son. However, it does give them some validation or some security in the system that he got his 5 years, he should serve his 5 years. So my position is to deny him again. And based on the nature and circumstance of the offense and the injury and impact to the victim. That's my position. Mr. Kozlowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, certainly the victim's statement from their family is very compassionate. And I agree, Mr. Rees has done a good job and is making some changes in his life to prepare himself to be successful and crime-free when he's ready to be released. The sentence was light in this case, and someone lost their life. It's very serious and tragic. And Madam Chair, I agree with you that I'm not ready at this point to grant parole.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate both of your inputs. And I again want to acknowledge the work that Mr. Rees has done.
That's a negate.
During this time, you can't negate really trying to do what's best. The challenge, of course, is the nature of this offense. The definite impact to the victim's family in this, and as you pointed out, they're very passionate about what the impact has really been to them and the loss that they really suffered in this. So I appreciate both of your input in this, and I'm also going to be denying its discretionary parole today for basically the same reason: nature, circumstance, arrest, the injury and impact to the victim, the fact that the offense was committed while on probation as well.
She said he was doing well on probation, but so I honestly, the nature of the underlying offense is very concerning as well. But he was doing well up until this point, and I did make notes of his performance. He was doing well. He was on transitional supervision out there, and he for 9 months, and he was doing well. So I don't know if I would necessarily.
That's fine. I'm going to with the nature of this injury and impact. It's family. But again, I want to really stress again that I think Mr. Rees is doing well. I hope that he continues to do the work that he's doing for himself.
Yeah. This job is not an easy job. It's there's going to be, everyone's not going to be happy with our decisions. And the only thing that we can do is our best to try to make the best decisions that we can. And based on the information that we reviewed, I think we knew from the beginning that this was really going to be. Yeah. So we're ready with our official decision. With regard to John Rees, 348595, I move that he be denied discretionary parole based on the nature and circumstance of his offense and the injury and impact to the victim. Mr. Rees will not have a new hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, Mr. Rees, again, you've heard the comments. Keep up the good work, sir, and we do wish you the best. We wish you well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, family. That's it.
Please send me 34859.
Who else is just feeling like totally shocked that there was a denial? How often have we seen parole hearings where they just don't take any of that into account, where they don't say, well, he took a life, so 5 years sounds appropriate. You should do all 5 years. We don't hear that in Connecticut. So it's like, I know for me, I'm just like, what? They denied? Wow. What am I going to yell about? It's like, it's, I don't know. I don't know why they changed their minds. Keep in mind, they had every reason to make an excuse to grant him. They saw him already for parole before we started recording, or I'd bring it to you. And they said, come back. He took the programs. He didn't get write-ups. He had a pretty, just an okay interview. we've seen much worse, I'll tell you that. And they still denied. God bless them making the right decision. I mean, now, the interesting thing about this crime, and they didn't like bring it up, they didn't challenge it. This was like Louisiana, depending on who the board. Definitely, I think they would have dug in. They would have said, "Well, tell us what happened that night," because and I'll read it to you. Thank you, Sir Richard, for all the info, but I'll just share with you so you have some background. Is that the 19-year-old was first struck by, I think it was a 2004 Cadillac. He fell into the street, and only then did John Richard slam into him and kill him. Now he stopped, spoke to first responders, but claimed that he was just a witness, not involved, and then he left the scene. Witnesses later said that, hey, he's the one who hit him. And then the police came to his house and they actually did DNA and they had to get a warrant. And he did this while he was on bond. Okay, he was out on bond, and we'll get into that. But to add additional information to this case, witnesses at the scene were waving at his car and saying, "Stop, stop." It wasn't like it was a bang, bang. They said that they were saying, "Stop, stop driving," and he didn't, for whatever reason. So it was a preventable accident. And I wouldn't be surprised if the police and others thought, well, maybe he was under some type of substance abuse, because why else did he flee the scene? Because if he did not flee the scene, he wouldn't, I don't think, and he was sober, he's not getting prison time, in my opinion. So, but he had the, you might say, the audacity or something. He sued, Sir Richard found this, he sued the city of Stamford on 12/6/2023. He sued them. It's interesting. This is a lawsuit filed by John Rees against the city of Stamford. Plaintiff is currently serving a 5-year sentence for evading responsibility after a fatal car accident. He alleges that the city's failure to properly light the street caused the accident and is now seeking relief. And then it's interesting. They go on to say, as part of his complaint, he seeks damages for the pain and suffering, including the emotional damage he experienced. And then the city goes on to say, it is unclear whether the plaintiff is referring to the pain and suffering he experienced as a result of the accident or from being imprisoned as a consequence. In any event, he sought and was granted leave to proceed in forma paris, or IFP, meaning that he was permitted to begin his case without paying the customary filing fee. And they basically dismissed it as frivolous. Court examines his complaint, dismisses any claim that is frivolous or malicious, fails to state claim on which relief may be granted, seeks monetary relief. It's like, can you imagine killing someone, getting a 5-year sentence, and then suing the city? I mean, it's just that's just mind-blowing to me. But so okay. He gets 5 years in prison for killing bicyclists in 2020. 19-year-old boy. You just can't make this stuff up. John pled guilty to evading responsibility in death, violation of probation. He was sentenced the same day to 12 years in prison, suspended after 5, followed by 4 years of probation. Police said the charges of violation of probation stemmed from an assault arrest. The fatal crash occurred at 10:30 p.m. November 6. The cyclist, 19-year-old city resident, was hit by a vehicle, throwing him off the bike and onto the road. A short time later, a 2006 Infiniti approached the area, and despite witnesses asking the operator to stop the vehicle, he continued and struck him on the ground, causing fatal injuries. Police said Rees was behind the wheel of the Infiniti and initially stopped and spoke with first responding officers, but denied involvement in the crash. He then left the scene, but a witness was able to get a photograph of Rees's license plate, and he was soon apprehended. He continued to deny involvement when questioned later that night, according to police. Authorities seized the Infiniti and, through their investigation, obtained a warrant for Rees's arrest, charging him with misconduct with the motor vehicle and felony evading responsibility. Boo said he contacted Rees, who claimed he would turn himself in, but did not, but himself in, but never did, and was not located for 6 months. So he went on the run for 6 months. Can you imagine? You're on bond. You then you evade. They get a search warrant. They get your DNA, and then you disappear for 6 months, and they still only give a 5-year sentence. That's pretty crazy. And then he sees the city. I mean, after he saw Bruce again, and you heard that what he did is he went the next day and spoke to the mother. It's like there's so much more to this that is just. So let's go over his record, and then we'll check out the new parole board member who so far, I mean, I've this is the first hearing that I'm bringing to you. Maybe you've seen others with him by the time you see this, but so far so good. And I wonder if it's an attempt to get. I don't think he replaced anyone. I think he's just new in the roster. I think that's what Richard said. They've been behind. So he has an arrest in 2015 for interfering with an officer resisting arrest. He has an arrest in November of 2016 for attempt to commit assault second degree. He was given a 5-year jail, suspended after 2 probation 3. Then he violated his probation 11/30/2022. That was this one. He has March 30th, 2018 illegal operation of a motor vehicle. Suspended license, I think is what it was. He has, and then he has this one, the death of, I remember that Connecticut only goes back 10 years. So it's not a long record though. And so here's the bio of our new parole board member. Isn't it interesting how they kind of all sound the same? They got like the same accent. It's hard to tell. Okay. At least the men. It's hard to tell for me. So Mr. Cizaskis was appointed to the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles as a full-time member in August 2024. He comes to the board having retired from the Waterbury Police Department as a lieutenant after 20 years of service. During his career, he was assigned to the Patrol Division, Vice Intelligence Division, Detective Division, Stewart, Statewide Narcotic Task Force, and Police Activity League. He's also served as Torrington Police Officer and as a sergeant with the Connecticut Army National Guard. He most recently worked as Director of Campus Safety at the Taft School. He probably made good money doing that job. Mr. Cizaskis has earned an associate's degree in criminal justice, Valley Community College, and bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Charter. He is honored to use his education, training, experience to serve his community. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him, to see if he's going to bring a little bit more toughness to the parole board, much needed toughness and fairness. And anyways, with that, I'll let you go.
And I'm reminded of that moment. I feel coercive rage, especially when having thanked him. I feel as if he mocked me, my pain, and the wound that will never heal. When I returned home and saw him on television, my world crumbled. I felt so awful that I was on the brink of losing my mind. It's a nightmare to know that someone like him walks freely among us. All of this caused me immense pain. It is not fair that he has freedom, even though I know nothing can bring back my son. Not even if he were to spend his entire life in prison, could that alleviate my suffering. All I ask is that he serve the full sentence, which does not even begin to reflect the crime he committed.